All right, today I want to show you some advanced command line tips. I just gave a lightning talk yesterday at my workplace and wanted to record this while it was still fresh. And really the reason for learning about advanced usage on the command line, there's a few different reasons. One is that it's fun. It's fun to be able to kind of know some of these advanced tips and kind of fly through things a little bit. Another reason is you just increase your speed, which increases the amount of value that you can add to whoever you're adding value to, whatever you're doing. And another reason, kind of at the risk of sounding like a broken record from my previous talk, the more that you can bake some of these things into your muscle memory, you can free your mind to be thinking about things at a higher level. So you can focus less on how you're doing something, but more on what you're doing. And that's a good way to focus. So when I gave this talk yesterday, I challenged everybody that if anybody knew all of these tips, I would be very impressed, and there might be a prize involved. I'm not going to give prizes out to random people over the internet, but I will be impressed, and I'd love to know, maybe in the comments or something, if you actually knew all these things already. So hopefully, and I'm cutting a bunch of stuff out, so really trying to get the more advanced stuff here. All right, so I'm in a directory in the Clojure repo, and this is in the Clojure source code for the Clojure language. And what I want to do, this is kind of a contrived example, but I'm going to use it to show some of these more advanced tricks and tips. What I want to do is count the number of Git commits that touch each of these files. At least at the top level. I'm not going to worry about descending into subdirectories for now. But so one way to do that would be git revlist, and then at means the head, and then you give it a file name, and I don't know, let's do Eden, and it'll tell you all the commits that have touched that file. In that case, it was just one, but so that's just a simple output. Now, if I wanted to pipe that to word count-l, one way that I could do that was to maybe hit my up arrow and do that, but I wanted to show one thing here, which was this is the simplest form of history expansion in Bash. All this is in Bash, by the way. Other shells are pretty similar in various ways, but specifically this is Bash. And this bang bang is an alias to the previous command. So if I type bang bang, pipe that to wc-l, that'll tell me what command it expands to, which is this, and tell me the answer, which is just one line. And one thing that's important to note here, and we'll build on this later, is that if I hit Control P here, I see the expansion. I don't see the bang bang in my history. So that's important, and we'll see why later. But really what I want to do is I want to parameterize this. So I'm going to say file, by the way, using readline bindings to jump around here, kind of move a little bit faster. I recommend learning those for the same reason that you would learn Vim or Emacs. It's just increase your speed, because readline really kind of lets you treat your command line prompt as an editor in a way. So it's worth learning. But we're going to parameterize that command for file in star.clj, again, not worrying about descending into subdirectories, and count the number of commits that touch each of these files. But we really want to see the file name as well, so let's do echo-n file. And that -n suppresses the new line that echo normally would print after it finishes printing what it's given. And so we see the number of commits on the same line as the file name, which is kind of useful. Okay, so that gives us some basic information. To continue this contrived example, I'm going to submit a conjecture. I'm going to say that I conjecture that walk.clj and xml.clj are related, and commits that touch one of them are likely to touch the other one. So let's see kind of what that looks like. If I go back to this command here and I say walk, in fact I'll take out the word count-l. That'll give me the commit IDs, of course. And this is basically what I want to do is I want to diff these two outputs. I could visually just look at these and see if they're the same or if they're similar or not, but that gets pretty hard to do visually, and especially if we had more than 7 commits we were dealing with here. So what I want to do is something like, one way to do this would be go up a couple commands, redirect this to a temporary file, redirect the second one to a different temporary file, and then diff the temporary files. That's one way to do it, but then we have to remember to go clean up the temporary files afterwards. And really, anytime that you're using temporary files in Bash, you can probably get away with using a shortcut, which is called process substitution. And that's the syntax here. So if I said diff-u and then gave it command 1, gave it command 2, something like that, what would happen is that Bash would execute command 1 in a sort of a subshell. I mean, it's not technically the right word, but basically it executes that first command, and it pipes its output to a file descriptor, and then gives diff that file descriptor as its argument. Same thing for the second input redirection here. So process substitution, and we're going to see this. I'm going to build up a command like this that I'm just going to plug in this first command in for command 1 and the second command in for command 2. But to do that, I could just use my readline bindings. I'm actually going to introduce another tip here, which is the FC built in. What FC does is it brings a command or a range of commands into an editor buffer, so that you can use your text editor to manipulate the commands however you like, and then whatever you save and quit with gets executed by Bash. So let's do that. FC -2 -1 means give me a range of the commands from 2 commands ago to 1 command ago. So in other words, the most recent 2 commands. Get that into my editor buffer, which in this case is just vim, and I'm going to use regular vim commands just like I normally would to create this command here. So this is what I want to execute. I'm just going to save and quit. And here we see, so first of all, before I get into the conjecture, FC is telling us, just like history expansion does, it tells us, okay, what was it executing? And so we see this is the line that was actually executed, and in order to execute that, it had to execute these 2 subcommands. So, and then what's really interesting is that the diff output begins here, and as far as diff is concerned, it got 2 arguments, /dev/fd/63 and 62. Those are the arguments that it got, and that's what it's diffing. So you can see that Bash is handling a lot of the plumbing for us. Now, as far as the conjecture goes, it looks like that's generally not true. There's a couple of commits here that touch both of these files, but most of them only touched one of those 2 files, so oh well. But as another example, let's say we want to know what these commits actually were, more than just the commit ID, but a little descriptive text from each one. So to do that, I would like to basically substitute revlist for maybe log-1 line, something like that. And normally I could do something like revlist, log, and so on with carets. And what that would do is, well, I could actually show you. I'll expand this with Alt caret, so Alt-Shift-6, and that'll expand that substitution for me. So I just substituted, I changed revlist to log. And one of the interesting things to see here is that it really only did the first match, and that's what caret does. It only changes the first match. What we want to do is something, a global substitution, basically. So what I want to do is refer to the previous command, except I want to modify it. So give it an operation of global substitution, and I'm going to change revlist at -- to log 1 line. And let's again expand it. If we hit enter right now, it would just expand and execute, but let's expand it again, Alt caret. And you can see it performed that substitution in both places. So that's kind of nice. And now we have a short, mostly short 1-line check-in. This one is a little bit long. But we can get a sense of, what are these commands, or what are these commits containing. I had one other thing to show you, which was if I wanted to reuse the last argument of the previous command, which is a fairly common thing that you might want to do. So I just looked at the log for that, but I also want to know how many lines are in that file. Well, I can say word count-l, and then a nifty readline binding that I can use is alt period, and that expands to that last argument from the most recent command. So that's kind of useful. Or maybe get blame, see what's in there, and so on. So that's all I got. A lot of other things I would love to show, but I am really trying to keep this short. So thanks for your time, and if you did understand and knew all of those tricks already, I'd be interested to know. Or if you liked it or didn't like the screencast, let me know. Leave a comment. Thanks a lot.